There is a deep silence within you that no voice of the world can disturb. It is not born of indifference or numbness, but of the ancient knowing that lies beyond the reach of praise or blame. When I speak to you now, I do not merely offer ideas. I am asking you to touch that silence, to allow yourself to feel the pulse of the self beneath the noise, beneath the masks, beneath the fragile constructions of identity that are shaped by the judgments of others. You see, much of your suffering arises from the simple but devastating belief that who you are is determined by what they say, by what they think, by the stories they whisper about you when you are not there to defend yourself. And yet, this is an illusion, a ghost that takes shape because you have not yet met the eternal presence within you, the self, the archetype of wholeness, which is the root of all true peace. The key to peace is not to erase what they say, but to see why their voices cut so deep. Do you understand why criticism wounds you? It is because there is a shadow within, for a hidden part of you, that fears their words might be true. You might not even realize how much of your life has been a performance staged for an invisible audience. The persona, that carefully constructed mask, is designed to be accepted, to be admired, to belong. But the persona is fragile because it is not the totality of who you are. It is a fragment of your being, an image you project to survive the social world. And every time someone attacks that image, it feels as though your very soul is under fire. Yet the truth is, the self, the greater totality of your psyche, cannot be harmed by their voices, for it exists beyond all human approval. When I studied the dreams of countless men and women, I found a recurring theme, a voice from the depths, often appearing as an old, wise figure, a guide, a stranger who speaks with a tone of certainty that the dreamer cannot ignore. This is the voice of the self, the archetype of inner order and meaning. It tells you that your worth is not measured by the fleeting standards of the collective, but because most people live entirely on the surface, trapped in the opinions of the crowd, they never hear this voice. They live and die believing they are the sum of what others say about them. Imagine for a moment that your life is a great stage. You stand in the center, clothed in the garments of your persona, performing the role you were taught to play. Around you sit the audience, parents, teachers, friends, strangers, critics, each with their own script of who they believe you should be. If you play your role well, they applaud. If you fell there, they jeer. But what if I told you that beyond the spotlight, behind the curtain, there is a mirror that reveals your true face, a face untouched by the expectations of the world? When you turn toward this mirror, the audience fades, their voices grow dim. You realize they never truly saw you to begin with. They only saw the mask. Peace comes when you stop trying to perfect the mask and begin to integrate what lies behind it. You must face the shadow, the part of you that you hide, not only from the world, but from yourself. For as long as you deny your shadow, every insult from the outside will feel like an attack on your existence. But when you embrace your darkness, when you accept that you are not merely the virtuous persona, but also the flawed, wounded, chaotic being beneath it, you gain a strange kind of invincibility. Nothing they say can harm you, because you've already said it to yourself, already faced it, already owned it. The peace that follows is not the peace of ignorance, but of wholeness. You might think that the key to peace is to silence the critics, to win their approval, to shape a life so perfect that no one can find fault. But this is the greatest trap of all. The collective mind will always find something to condemn because it projects its own disowned shadows onto you. What they say is rarely about you. It is about them. It is about their unresolved fears, their hidden envy, their own inability to face the darkness within. And when you understand this, you begin to see that the judgments of others are like passing storms. They might stir the surface of your mind, but they cannot reach the depths where your true self resides. Let me tell you a story. A young woman once came to me, tormented by the harsh words of her family. They called her selfish, strange, unworthy of love. She carried these words like wounds, believing them to be the truth of who she was. But in her dreams, a different image emerged. She saw herself walking through a dark forest, pursued by shadowy figures. Just as they were about to catch her, a white wolf appeared, silent and strong, standing by her side. This wolf was her ally, her instinctual self. It's the part of her that knew she was more than the voices of condemnation. When I asked her what she felt in the presence of this wolf, she said, "Peace. I feel safe." I told her, "Then listen to this, wolf, for it carries a truth that no human tongue can erase." Slowly, she began to realize that her family's words were projections, not reality. The wolf was her key to peace, because it was a symbol of the self, her inner strength and wholeness. In your own life, there is a wolf waiting to be found. It may not appear as an animal. It might come as a dream figure, a sudden intuition, a moment of deep stillness when you realize you are not who they say you are. You are something far larger, something rooted in the collective unconscious, carrying the wisdom of countless generations, shaped by archetypes that existed long before anyone spoke your name. The peace you seek is not in controlling what they say, but in returning to the source of your own being, the eternal ground, where no voice of the world can reach. You must ask yourself, who are they? Anyway, are they not also trapped in their own masks, performing their own roles, terrified of being unmasked? The one who criticizes you is often the one who has not faced their own shadow. They see in you what they cannot bear to see in themselves. And so they judge, they attack, they gossip not because of who you are, but because of who they refuse to be. When you understand this, compassion begins to arise, not a naive compassion that tolerates abuse, but a deep recognition that their words come from pain, not truth. Peace then is born not from retaliation, but from seeing beyond the projection. There is a concept I often return to, individuation. It is the process of becoming who you truly are, beyond all collective roles and opinions. Individuation requires courage. 4, it means stepping away from the crowd. Enduring misunderstanding, and sometimes even ridicule, but the reward is profound. A sense of inner harmony that no external voice can disrupt. When you are individuated, you no longer ask, what do they think of me? Instead, you ask, am I aligned with my own soul? And when the answer is yes, the judgments of others lose their power. The path to this peace is not without suffering. In fact, suffering is often the doorway. Every wound inflicted by their words is an invitation to look within, to find the place where you are still dependent on approval. If you follow the pain, if you trace it down to its roots, you will find a child within a younger self who longed to be seen and loved. This child is still waiting, still hoping that the world will finally give the validation it never gave. But here is the truth. The world will never fill that void. You must turn inward and become the parent, the guide, the protector of your own soul. Only then will the child rest, and only then will you find peace. Peace begins to grow when you learn to face the inner voices that echo louder than the voices outside. Often, what hurts most about the things others say is not the words themselves, but the way they resonate with the secret accusations already living within you. You carry within your unconscious the archetype of the critic, the stern judge who whispers that you are not enough, that you are unworthy, that you must earn every breath you take. This inner judge takes the form of the parental shadow, the collective voice of society, the archetype of the ruler who demands perfection and punishes imperfection. As long as you allow this judge to rule, every criticism from the world outside will feel like confirmation of its verdict. But when you confront this inner figure, when you stand in the center of your psyche and say, I am more than your judgment, something miraculous happens. The external voices lose their hold, and the chains begin to break. Imagine that you are standing in a hall of mirrors. Each mirror reflects a distorted version of you, taller, shorter, fatter, thinner, each one representing how others perceive you. Some mirrors flatter you, others mock you, but none show the full truth. You could spend your whole life running from one mirror to another, trying to fix your appearance, trying to control how you are seen, or you could step back, close your eyes, and feel your essence beyond reflection. What they say about you is nothing more than one of these distorted mirrors. Do not let it define the image you hold of yourself. For the true self, the totality of your being, is not captured in any reflection. There is a danger in seeking peace through validation. If you make your peace dependent on others liking you, praising you, or approving of you, you are enslaved. They become the gatekeepers of your inner world. A single harsh word can shatter your calm. A single look of disapproval can send you spiraling into self-doubt. But if you understand that your worth is intrinsic, rooted in the archetypal self, you gain a freedom that cannot be taken. The self is the center and circumference of the psyche. It is the silent witness of your life, the eternal observer that watches your joys and sorrows without being destroyed by them. When you connect with this center, the opinions of others are like passing clouds in the vast sky of your being. They come They go, but they do not alter the sky itself. I once encountered a man who was haunted by the cruel laughter of his peers. As a child, he had been mocked for his differences. And now, as an adult, he carried their voices like ghosts. In his dreams, he would see a dark crowd surrounding him, laughing, pointing, calling him names. He would wake drenched in fear, feeling as if the laughter would devour him. When we explored these dreams, we discovered that the crowd was not his enemies, but fragments of his own psyche, his disowned shadow, his own accepted self. As he learned to approach the crowd with curiosity rather than fear, something changed. He began to speak to them in his dreams, asking, "Why do you laugh?" And slowly, they revealed that they were not mocking him, but trying to get his attention. They represented the parts of himself he had tried to exile, the wildness, the vulnerability, the creativity that did not fit into the persona he had crafted. When he embraced these exiled parts, the laughter stopped. He no longer feared the voices outside, because he had made peace with the voices inside. You may wonder why I speak so much of dreams and symbols, when the question is how to find peace from the judgments of others. It is because the judgments you fear are rarely about the present moment. They are rooted in old wounds, in archetypal patterns that have shaped you since childhood. Every time someone criticizes you, it awakens these ancient patterns. If you do not understand them, you will react blindly, defending yourself, lashing out, or withdrawing in shame. But if you learn to see the pattern, to recognize that what they say is merely a trigger for something deeper, you can begin to respond from a place of awareness. This is a true path to peace, not in controlling the world, but in understanding your inner world. There is a powerful paradox here. The more you try to silence your critics, the louder they become. The more you try to control what others think, the more you lose yourself. True peace arises not from fighting, but from allowing. Let them speak. Let them think what they will. It does not matter. What matters is that you are grounded in your own truth, your own connection to the self. This does not mean that you ignore all feedback or live in arrogance. It means that you discern which voices are worth listening to and which are simply projections. It means that you stand in your own center, unshaken by the storms of opinion. Consider the archetype of the warrior. The true warrior is not disturbed by the shouts of the crowd. He fights not for their applause, but because he is aligned with his own code, his own inner sense of rightness. When others mock him, he does not crumble, for his worth is not tied to their approval. You, too, must become a warrior of the soul. You must learn to stand in your truth, even when misunderstood, even when rejected. This is not easy. It will test you. It will strip you of illusions, but it will give you something infinitely more valuable than validation. It will give you peace. The shadow is a great teacher on this path. Everything they say about you that causes pain is a signpost pointing to your shadow. If they call you selfish, ask yourself, is there a part of me that is self-focused that I have not yet accepted? If they call you weak, ask, is there a part of me that feels fragile, that I have been trying to hide the moment you bring these hidden aspects into the light of consciousness. They lose their power over you. Criticism cannot wound what you have already integrated. Instead, it becomes information, neutral and even useful, but never fatal. I will tell you something that might surprise you. Peace does not come from being unscathed. It comes from being scarred and yet unbroken. It comes from knowing that you can be misunderstood, even hated, and still remain whole. The alchemists knew this when they spoke of turning lead into gold. The lead is the weight of collective opinion, the dense matter of judgment and fear. The gold is the self, radiant and eternal. Your task is to transform the lead of their words into the gold of inner strength. This is a work of inner alchemy, a process of patience and fire. Do not underestimate the power of silence in this process. There is a silence that is not suppression but wisdom. When others speak ill of you, your first impulse may be to defend, to argue, to prove them wrong. But often the greatest strength lies in silence, in not giving their words the energy of your reaction. Silence does not mean passivity. It means choosing not to be pulled into the drama of projections. It means holding your center, breathing deeply, and knowing that their words cannot define you. In my own life, I have faced misunderstanding, criticism, even ridicule, when I spoke of the collective unconscious, of archetypes, and the reality of the psyche. Many dismissed me as a dreamer, a mystic, a man lost in symbols, but I did not allow their voices to silence me. For I knew that what I spoke was not born of the ego, but of something far greater. I listened to the voice within, to the self, and this gave me the courage to continue. You to have this inner voice. It is waiting for you to trust it more than you trust the world outside. The greatest journey you will ever take is the one that leads inward. For there you will find both your fiercest enemy and your truest friend. This inner landscape is not always beautiful. It is filled with shadows, forgotten memories, and old wounds. But it is also where the seeds of your peace lie waiting, hidden beneath the soil of pain. Every time they speak ill of you, every time they question your worth or twist your image, it is as though the ground of your soul trembles. You feel the quake because the roots of your being are not yet deep enough. But when you begin to nurture the inner self, when you tend to your roots, instead of trimming the leaves for others to admire, the tremors no longer frighten you. You realize that storms may rage above, yet the roots remain untouched. There is a moment that comes to every soul when it must choose between the approval of the world and the voice of its own inner truth. This moment is not loud or dramatic. It often comes as a whisper, a quiet realization that you cannot keep betraying yourself just to please the voices outside. It is here that individuation truly begins. To individuate is to stand apart, to say, this is who I am. Even if you do not understand, even if you speak against me. But such a stance is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is not rebellion for rebellion's sake, but the recognition that peace cannot be given by the collective. Peace is born when you no longer seek to wear every mask they hand you. I have often said that what you resist persists, and this is true for the opinions of others. If you spend your energy fighting what they say, you give life to their words, you allow them to take root in your psyche. But if you observe their words like clouds passing across the sky, if you neither cling to praise nor recoil from criticism, you begin to taste freedom. To achieve this, you must cultivate a deep awareness of your own projections. For often, what hurts you most is not what they say, but what you secretly believe about yourself. If someone calls you worthless, and you know in your depths that you are not, their words will slide off you like rain from stone. But if a part of you fears that you are indeed worthless, their words pierce like arrows. Thus, the true work is not to silence them, but to face the part of you that believes them. You might ask, how can I face these parts of myself without being consumed by them? The answer lies in symbolic vision. Dreams, myths, and archetypes provide the language of the unconscious. They give form to what is formless. When you see your shadow, not as a threat, but as a figure in your inner drama, a wounded child, a dark warrior, a trickster, you can approach it with curiosity. The moment you name it, it loses its power to dominate you from the dark. It becomes a companion on your path rather than an enemy within. And once you make peace with this inner shadow, the outer world can no longer use it against you. I recall a dream told to me by a man who had been vilified in his workplace, unfairly accused of incompetence. In his dream, he was standing on a battlefield surrounded by mocking soldiers, their faces twisted with contempt. Suddenly, a figure appeared, a blacksmith hammering a piece of metal on an anvil. The blacksmith looked at him and said, "Do you see, their words are just fire, but you are the iron." The man awoke with tears in his eyes, realizing that the criticism he faced was shaping him, forging him into something stronger. Just as fire strengthens metal, the peace he found did not come from proving them wrong, but from understanding that even their attacks had meaning. They were part of his individuation, part of the fire that was shaping his soul. This is what I want you to understand. Nothing they say about you can harm the self. The self is eternal. It is the divine image within the spark of the cosmos reflected in your psyche. But the ego, that fragile shell of identity, trembles at every word because it believes itself to be everything. The ego wants to be liked, admired, praised. It wants to survive at all costs. Yet the more you cling to the ego, the less peace you find, because the ego is never satisfied. One day they will praise you, the next they will curse you, and the ego will swing like a pendulum between elation and despair. True peace comes when you begin to see beyond the ego. When you shift your identity from the mask to the self, what then is the self? It is the totality of your being, the conscious mind. The unconscious, the shadow, the anima or animus, the archetypal roots that stretch into the collective unconscious. It is the union of opposites. the harmony of light and darkness, the center that holds even when the world falls apart. When you align with the self, you no longer fear being misunderstood. You can hear their words without being shattered, because you know that no human opinion can define the vastness of who you are. You are not merely the image they see. You are not even the image you see in the mirror. You are the dreamer, and the dream, the eternal presence behind every thought. Sometimes I wonder if we have forgotten the sacredness of silence. In a world so loud with opinions, with endless commentary and judgment, silence has become a rare gift. Yet, silence is where peace is born. When you withdraw from the noise, when you sit with your own thoughts and feel the vastness of your inner world, you realize that most of what they say does not matter. Their words are temporary, but your being is eternal. Silence teaches you that you do not have to defend yourself against every voice. You do not have to explain yourself to every mind that misunderstands you. There is a freedom in letting them talk while you remain rooted in your truth. There is also a great strength in accepting that you cannot control how others see you. No matter how carefully you craft your persona, they will interpret you through their own filters, their own wounds, their own projections. This is inevitable. If you try to please everyone, you will become a hollow shell, a chameleon with no true colors. But if you remain true to your essence, even when they misjudge you, you will radiate a quiet power that no criticism can dim. For authenticity is stronger than approval, and when you live authentically, the opinions of others become like echoes. They reach your ears, but not your soul. Let me ask you how much of your life has been wasted in fear of what others think. How many times have you silenced your voice, hidden your light, betrayed your own truth because you feared rejection? This fear is rooted in the collective shadow, the fear of being cast out, of being alone, of being unloved. But you must understand that your soul did not come here to be universally accepted. It came to become whole, and wholeness often requires standing apart, even walking alone. There is a loneliness in this path, yes, but it is the loneliness of the mountain peak, where the air is pure and the view is vast. To find peace, you must be willing to stand on this peak. You must be willing to say, I will not be defined by what they say. You will feel the winds of judgment, the cold of misunderstanding, but you will also feel the warmth of your own soul. You will know that you are living your truth, and that is worth more than all the applause in the world. There is a profound liberation that arises when you no longer measure yourself by the scale of other people's voices. This liberation is not sudden. It is like a slow dawning, a gradual recognition that the peace you have been searching for was never out there. It has always been within, buried beneath the layers of fear and the hunger for approval. Many people live their entire lives as though they are chasing a mirage, trying to silence every critic, to be seen as perfect, to avoid the sting of disapproval. But even if you were to achieve this impossible task, you would discover an emptiness still gnawing at your heart. Why? Because peace that depends on external conditions is not peace. It is a fragile illusion. The self does not seek approval, because it is complete in itself. It is like a mountain, unmoved by storms, unshaken by the passing winds of praise or blame. The more you identify with this mountain, the less you are disturbed by the shifting weather of human opinion. But to find this inner mountain, you must descend into the valley of your own soul. You must face the rivers of memory, the forests of shadow, the caves where forgotten fragments of yourself are still waiting. This is not an easy journey. It requires courage, for the path inward is filled with truths that may unsettle you. But those truths, once faced, become the pillars of your strength. You see, every judgment they cast upon you is like an arrow, but it only pierces where you are unarmored. The armor of the soul is not built by pretending to be invulnerable. It is forged by embracing your wounds, by accepting the parts of yourself you once rejected. When you say, yes, I am not perfect, and yet I am whole, their arrows fall harmlessly to the ground. No one can shame you with the truth you have already accepted. No one can diminish you when you no longer derive your value from their gaze. I remember a dream from a woman who lived in constant fear of being judged by others. In her dream, she was walking through a great hall filled with mirrors, each reflecting a distorted, grotesque version of herself. She tried to smash the mirrors, but more appeared endlessly. Finally, exhausted, she fell to the ground and closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she saw a single clear mirror in front of her, and in that mirror was her true face, calm, unshaken, luminous. This dream revealed to her that the only way to overcome the endless judgments of the world was not to fight them, but to look beyond them, to find her own unbroken image within. The archetype of the hero's journey often involves this descent into the underworld, where the hero must face trials, confront shadows, and return with a treasure. In your case, the treasure is your own peace. You will not find it by battling every voice or winning every argument. You will find it by entering the underworld of your psyche, facing the shadows that fear rejection, and emerging with the understanding that you are not defined by any single story told about you. You are a multitude, a living tapestry woven from both light and dark threads. There is a deep spiritual truth here. The more you resist what others say, the more power you give their words. Resistance is a kind of attachment, but when you allow their voices to pass through you like wind through the trees, you remain untouched. This does not mean that you become indifferent or numb. It means you become grounded in something deeper. You recognize that their opinions are not ultimate truths, but fleeting perceptions, often colored by their own wounds and projections. Think for a moment about how often people project their own inner battles onto others. When someone calls you arrogant, it may be their own hidden pride speaking. When they accuse you of selfishness, it might be their own fear of being unseen. In this way, their judgments are not really about you, but about the parts of themselves they cannot face. If you take their words as absolute truth, you become a container for their unresolved pain. But if you see through the projection, you are free. You realize that their criticism is a mirror of their own inner world, not a verdict on yours. To live in peace, you must practice what I call psychological distancing, not detachment from life, but from the collective noise. This is the ability to step back from the swirl of voices and see the archetypal patterns at play. You begin to recognize that every community, every family, every group has its shadow. They need someone to carry it, for them to project it upon if you find yourself being criticized unfairly. Perhaps you are the one carrying the shadow. They refuse to see this is not a curse, but an opportunity. By holding the projection with awareness, by refusing to internalize it as truth, you break the cycle. You become a vessel of transformation rather than a victim of the collective mind. In one of my lectures, I spoke about the danger of identifying too strongly with the persona. The persona is like a costume we wear to interact with society. It is useful, even necessary, but when you mistake the costume for your true self, you become vulnerable to every opinion. If someone dislikes your costume, you feel as though they dislike your very soul. The task, therefore, is to remember that you are not the costume. You are the actor beneath it. And beyond the actor, you are the self, the silent witness. The eternal consciousness that is neither praised nor blamed. What happens when you stop caring about what they say? At first, it feels terrifying, as though you are stepping into a void. We are so conditioned to seek approval that letting go of it feels like death. But this is precisely what must happen. The death of the false self, the death of the ego's need for constant validation, and like all deaths in the symbolic sense, it is followed by rebirth. You are reborn into a freedom that cannot be shaken. You begin to live not for their applause, but for the quiet alignment with your own soul. This is where peace lives, in the space where you no longer chase after fleeting approval, but rest in the truth of who you are. You may wonder, but what if their words still hurt me? Even when I try to ignore them, pain is not a sign that you are failing. Pain is a sign that something within you is asking to be seen. When their words sting, turn inward and ask, what part of me believes this? What wound is being touched? Often the hurt is not from the present moment, but from old wounds that were never healed. A parent's harshness, a teacher's cruelty, a friend's betrayal. These old scars are easily reopened by the sharpness of new words. But if you tend to these wounds, if you bring them compassion and understanding, the sting fades. Their words may still reach your ears, but they will no longer pierce your heart. The world will always have its opinions. People will talk, they will judge, they will misunderstand. This is the nature of the collective mind. But you are not here to be defined by the collective. You are here to discover your own wholeness. The key to peace is not to stop the world from speaking, but to stop believing that their speech defines you. Once you see this clearly, a new kind of freedom arises. You can move through life like a tree standing in the wind, unmoved at the roots, bending but never breaking. There is a moment of awakening that comes when you realize that no amount of approval will ever give you the peace you seek. You could gather endless praise, endless recognition, but if your own soul is not aligned, if you have not embraced your inner truth, all that praise will feel hollow. Likewise, the harshest criticism can only wound you if it touches the part of you that still doubts your worth. When you live from the self, neither praise nor blame can define you. They become like passing weather, one day sun, or the next day storm, yet you remain the sky behind it all. In many of my studies, I found that people who achieved true psychological freedom were not those who avoided judgment, but those who faced it with an open heart. They learned to ask themselves, what is this judgment showing me about myself? What is it awakening that I still need to heal? When they did this, they stopped seeing critics as enemies and began to see them as mirrors. Some mirrors are warped, yes, but even in distortion, there is something to learn. The shadow loves to hide behind the words of others. If you are courageous enough to see what those words reveal about your inner world, they lose their poison. Consider the symbol of the phoenix. The phoenix is consumed by fire, yet it is reborn from its own ashes. When you face the fire of judgment and allow it to burn away the false images you cling to, you rise renewed. Their words may sting at first, but they can also free you if you let them burn away your dependence on approval. You emerge from the ashes lighter, stronger, and at peace. This is why the journey toward peace is often a journey through fire. It is not a path of avoidance, but of transformation. To live as your true self is to accept that not everyone will understand you. This is one of the most difficult truths for the ego to accept. The ego wants to be understood, validated, confirmed, but the self does not need understanding. It simply is. When you anchor yourself in the self, you stop seeking to explain or justify yourself to every voice. You understand that those who are meant to see you will see you, and those who do not are simply not ready. You no longer bend yourself into shapes to fit their expectations, because you know that peace comes from authenticity, not from performance. Think of the archetype of the wise elder, the sage who sits in stillness, who speaks only when necessary, and whose words carry weight because they are not born of the need to impress. This archetype exists within you. There is a part of you that already knows that peace is not in the noise, but in the stillness beneath it. When you connect with this inner sage, the voices of the world fade into the background. You listen to them, yes, but you are not ruled by them. You respond from wisdom rather than react from fear. I recall a man who once told me he had spent his entire life trying to prove himself. He was exhausted, not from the work itself, but from the endless need to be seen as worthy. What do you fear will happen? I asked him, if they no longer approve of you? He was silent for a moment. And then he said, I fear I will disappear. This is the fear at the core of many of us, that without the recognition of others, we do not exist, but this is an illusion. Your existence does not depend on their eyes, their words, their validation. You exist because you are, because life itself breathes through you. When you know this in your bones, you no longer live as a prisoner of opinion. The collective unconscious holds countless archetypes of trial and redemption. Every myth tells this story. The hero must leave the familiar world, face the judgments of gods and men, and return with a treasure that only they could find. This treasure is not fame or approval, it is inner wholeness. The same is true for you. Your peace is your treasure, but you must be willing to walk through misunderstanding to claim it. You must be willing to let some voices fade so you can hear the deeper voice of your own soul. There is a dreamlike quality to the way we experience the opinions of others. Often, we take them far too literally, as if every word is a stone etched with eternal truth. But in truth, what they say is like a fleeting dream here for a moment and gone the next. Have you not noticed how quickly opinions change? Today they may speak well of you, tomorrow they may condemn you. If you build your peace on such shifting ground, you will always be at the mercy of the collective tide. But if you anchor yourself in the eternal archetype of the self, you are unshaken. You become like a tree rooted deep into the earth, standing firm while the seasons change around you. You must ask yourself this question: who is the you that they are talking about? It is rarely the real you. It is an image they have constructed from fragments, from assumptions, from their own projections. They cannot see the fullness of your being because you yourself are still discovering it. How could they possibly define what you are? Only you, through deep self-reflection, through the courage to face your shadow and embrace your light, can begin to know the truth of your own nature. And as you come to know this truth, the noise of their voices becomes background music, present, but no longer controlling your life. There is a kind of peace that arises when you simply allow people to misunderstand you. You do not need to explain yourself to everyone. Explanation is often a form of seeking approval, of trying to control how you are seen. But when you stop explaining, when you simply live in alignment with your own soul, those who are meant to understand will feel it, and those who are not will fall away. Peace is not in convincing them, it is in being yourself despite them. The final key I want to give you is trust. Trust the process of your own becoming. Trust that every judgment, every misunderstanding, every painful word is shaping you. Just as the sculptor's chisel shapes the stone, you are not here to be untouched. You are here to be transformed. And transformation is often uncomfortable, often messy. But through this process, you become real. You become whole. You become someone who no longer depends on the fragile approval of the world. In this wholeness, there is a quiet joy. It is not the joy of being praised or admired, but the joy of being true. You wake in the morning and know that you are living your life, not someone else's story. You move through the world with a calm strength, not because the voices have stopped, but because they no longer define you. And when you reach this place, you find that what they say no longer matters. The peace you have found is deeper than words. So I say to you now, let them speak, let them whisper, let them judge. Their words are like waves crashing against the shore, but you are the ocean vast, deep, unbroken, Do not live as a prisoner of their opinions. Live as the self, as the being who carries both shadow and light, who stands whole in the face of all storms. The path to this peace is not easy, but it is worth everything. It is the path of freedom, of truth, of wholeness. Close your eyes for a moment and feel this truth no matter what they say about you. You remain, no matter what names they call you. You are beyond names. You are the silence behind all sound, the stillness beneath all movement, the self that is eternal. When you know this, truly know it, no voice can take your peace away.